Okay, in this section of our DVD, we're going to design a sign. And the design I'm thinking about is live your dream, because I've been living other people's dreams as being a full-time wood carver for the past 25 years. And then I've come up with this little design of planting a dream of a seed, having it come up as a little seedling and eventually flowering into a wonderful dream. I've gotten on the computer to find typefaces, something that's kind of a traditional letter, which has serifs on it, which are these little triangular bases. And these bold letters allow themselves to be skew cut or V cut kind of approach to it, which is very traditional in sign carving. As far as signs go, I've always favored ovals as opposed to squares and rectangles. So what I want to do is to lay them out, and this is just giving me a basic size for the oval I'm going to use. Okay, we'll angle them off slightly. And I guess a 12-inch by 10. So we'll go 12 by 10. And that's going to be the size of our oval. So I have this nice pine board. It has really nice grain to it. It should cut really, really well. I want to leave at least a 1/2 inch border to put in a coved edge. I could see through the transparency where the coved edge is. Now I'm basically just going to freehand the letters in. If I need to, I'll go back with a ruler and straighten some of the bottoms. But by doing this with a ruler, you're going to make it very messy with the carbon paper underneath it as the pressure of the ruler keeps getting moved. Okay, it's all there. When I drew the flowers, I did homework. You don't want to put an oak leaf where a pansy should be. So I brought down this pansy from up in our kitchen to use as reference. And there we have the overall design for the sign that we're going to carve. Just for easier handling and so I can control the knife with both hands, I'm going to put this in a holding device. I've screwed the plate to the back. Okay, this is all going to be knife carving. This is basically a V-cut letter, and I'm holding the knife on a 45-degree angle, both on my horizontal and vertical cuts, to have a meeting of the two cuts in the center of the letters. Okay, and this is what's called a skew cut letter, when you have both of your sides of the letters come to a V at the bottom. Now this is a little bit of a precision kind of cut, and when I was a sign carver, when I was in college, this is where I learned a lot of production carving. How to save time, how to be efficient with the tool that you have in your hand. So you see I'll make all my bottom cuts so that because the grain is running vertical through this carving, if I started to carve the sides of the letters first, the grain might run and crack on me. So I'm going to cut all the bottoms and then I'll cut all the tops to eliminate any run of the grain. Pine is a wonderful grain to work with, but it also has its peculiarities. Okay, I had carved my own sign out of cherry, and it is a really nice wood to carve in, but I'll tell you, you're going to spend a lot more time carving cherry than you will pine. So I'm outlining some of the letters to make sure that the grain is not going to run on me and crack. Now the little dot on the eye, I'm going to core this like I would an apple. I'm just going to take the tip of the blade and keep the tip in the central part of the dot, and I'm going to make a circular cut. And have the dot of the eye. And I'm going to make a stop cut at the corners of each letter. And the letters are not particularly deep. So by holding this on a 45-degree angle, I'm bringing the knife up, and again, very controlled. You're not going to pop this whole letter out probably with one cut, but you'll get close. Now as I'm pulling the knife through the wood, I'm trying to ride the bevel of the knife. And the bevel of the knife is giving me a flat surface. So I have a nice, clean, crisp cut. Well, in the corners here, they didn't all come out, but don't worry about it. Just come back in and make those corners just a little deeper. Finish your serif edge. Come back and round off that little chip in the bottom. And it's okay to make the corners a little deeper. It helps with just a little bit of a shadow. And then we have a nice carved, crisp letter. So now we'll go in sequence. Angle my corner cuts. I've already cut the bottom and the top. So I start in shallow at the outside, and then as I come towards the V, I'm going to bring the knife a little bit deeper. Because I kind of want all the letters to have a fairly uniform depth. Now it's all hand cut, so it's going to vary somewhat, but that's the charm of doing a hand carved sign. So I want to just bring it right on the side of that pencil line, and I want to make sure I stop right in the corner. Okay, we're 2 letters into it. Again, do my sides. Now this part of the V is narrower than the right side, so I'm not going to go as deep on this side as I will on this right side. Okay, now this is going to intersect the smaller right-hand side of the letter, and that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be. One time when I was a sign carver, we had to carve 36 street signs about this, well, a little larger than this, both sides. I think it took me a month. And here comes the chip. Okay, just out like that. Now again, I want to clean up the bottom. Each letter I'm going to try to finish up while I'm here and not have to come back. Okay, now with curved letters, you have to kind of be careful because you have various thicknesses, so you're going to have varying depths. So when you come into a wider, fatter part of the letter, sink it down a little deeper, and then as you start to come to the tail end, you make your cut a little shallower. And try to avoid overcutting. E's and A's are probably the toughest letters to carve. O's are even better than an E. So more than likely I'm not going to get this to come out as a single chip. That chip is going to come right out. Don't pop the inside of the E out, so be careful, don't get confused about what chip you're taking out and which one you're leaving. Okay, now most of the E is out. This is a little bumpy in this area, so I'm going to make a finish pass. Much better. I'm happier with that one. Now we do the second row. As I'm coming into my cut, I'm not only pulling with my right hand, but I'm also pushing the back of the blade with my thumb because I really want a lot of control. I want to make sure that I don't overcut the letter and end up having a big knife cut come into the background. And a lot of these cuts are basically the cuts we're going to use when we do a section on chip carving. It's the same triangular, very controlled knife cuts that is required to chip carve. Okay, you'll see that as I turn it, the shadows can help me find out places that it might need a little dressing up, like this little corner right here. This little corner of the U wasn't popped out yet. So I'll come back and start doing my top of the letters. And there you have it. take a quick look over, see if there's anything I want to fix up. Okay, I'm going to take the 16V tool and the 3mm and start outlining the flower and leaf and stems. And I'm doing this other than using a knife, just for a little different texture. Now with the V tool, there is no slicing motion and rocking like I was doing with the deep gouges. So I'm using a lot of force to push it straight through the wood, but also torquing and giving my curves and trying to get nice clean cuts. And also I'm looking for a little depth too. I want the depth to almost kind of echo the depth of the letters. Take the 11 gouge and 10mm. This is becoming one of the favorite gouges of this week. And curving lines. Nothing straight, nothing heavy. Now I know this seed does not belong with the pansy, but it's a seed. Pansy seed's very tiny. That'll work. Okay, the last thing to do on this sign is to put a cove border around the outside edge. I'm going to use a number 11 gouge and an 18mm. And what I want to do is just bring this gouge right up along the outside line. Now we're going to have to be conscious of the grain to make sure that it's not going to run on us. And I'm using the gouge as a depth guide also. So I'm going about halfway to the height of the gouge. Okay, we're starting to have a grain change, so I want to swing the carving around. Okay, I'm coming up right to the cross grain, the end grain, right at the very top of the sign. So I want to make sure that I'm getting a nice clean cut. Okay, that'll about do it. Now you'll see there's some smudges on the surface from the carbon paper. That will show up if you leave it there to paint. So I'm going to get some sandpaper and we're going to get rid of that. And I'm sanding with the grain so I don't make any scratches going cross grain. I don't want to hit the flower because I don't want to take off any of the surface of the flower. Now, I didn't sand the coved edge. Never underestimate the different surface textures to give you a really nice effect to your sign. Then we have a nice smooth surface. We have the carved letters, the carved flower, and the carved edge. So we have a variation of surface textures, which I think works nice.